for taking a few minutes with me today. I always rely on your advice and wisdom.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the kind words, and I'm always happy to join you.
John Lusink is the president of Right at Home Realty and the president of Servus Holding. The last time we sat down to do an interview, John, it was early 2022. I know it seems like it was about 5 minutes ago, but it's already been 3 years. And I think at that time, we had just started the process of raising interest rates. So we spent the next 18 months to 2 years raising interest rates, getting inflation under control. I came into 2025 believing that, okay, this is it. This is the year of pent-up demand. All the sellers have been waiting until interest rates came down so we could see more activity in the market. So all of that leads me to my first question, which is, generally speaking, in your opinion, what do you think buyers and sellers can expect from real estate this year? I know it's a big question.
Well, it's a very relevant and fair question. So I think what they can expect, first of all, I mean, it's no secret because the numbers are what they are, and that is more supply, more opportunity for buyers, that is. Having said that, buyers and sellers are on the fence. And I think there's a bit of a stalemate going on. In some regards, sellers that don't have to move are making the choice to stay in their homes for a bit. Buyers that don't have to move or can't afford to move, therefore, are also staying. So there is a bit of a stalemate. Hence, what you're seeing, and the results again speak to that, is a probably historically low number of sales. And certainly right at home, property.ca, we're mirroring what you're seeing in the market, and transactions have fallen off. And so there's this sort of, everybody's in a bit of a holding pattern. And I think most of us, myself included, we're anticipating a much busier spring market. So that's sort of the current state of affairs.
Do you imagine that this stalemate, which I'm hearing as kind of a push-pull, people that are inclined and ready to sell, for example, for sellers this year, but at the same time, they're conflicted, they're ambivalent, because that move that I thought I was going to make this year, there's all of these sort of larger economic and political forces going on. And now we feel like we want to pause again. And I feel like we're so familiar with the pause at this point. And I too have been looking forward to a very busy spring market. That's the narrative that I've been giving to my clients. So what do you think, as a follow-up to that, what needs to happen in order for people to take their hand off the pause button, do you think?
Yeah, it's both a combination, I would say, of lower interest rates and also psychologically and probably a degree of reality, in the sense that people need to be confident. There's a lot of unease, of course, in general throughout the business community. Layoffs are happening. People are, businesses are worried about the threat of tariffs. So I think until there's a level of confidence, couple that with, some lower interest rates, we're going to, be stuck. Now, that said, the Bank of Canada, certainly the concern for them is they need to get rates to a level that can stimulate the economy. And so, I think that's really critical. It's something that has to happen in the face of very real threats of trade war. So those two things I feel are really key issues currently.
It almost makes me optimistic that in some strange way, the difficult world events could lead to even lower interest rates, which of course has a direct relationship to what's happening in how busy it is out there.
Yeah, exactly. On the supply side, certainly, right at home listings are at their highest in probably a decade. Certainly the statistics support the same, whether it's whether you're looking at CREA stats or local board stats. So, from that point of view, certainly, I would say we've transitioned to a buyer's market. It's not helpful if we don't have the buyers stepping out to actually make offers. So
Right.
challenging. Yeah.
I think the next question I think that makes the most sense is as we sort of begin to prepare for spring to whatever
Mm,
extent that arrives, how do you see these broader world events? And I'm being a little
mhm,
opaque with the question. How do you see all of those things sort of impacting consumer confidence? And I mean, this could be a number of things. It could be on the positive side with interest rates, it could be on the
mhm,
negative side with the threat of tariffs, the war in Ukraine, and the democratic implications of that. And of
mhm.
course, the things like the weather, which we certainly can't control, and it's been very
Yep.
cold. So what does that look like to you when you think about what we can expect this year?
Well, out of every major challenge, if you look hard enough, you can find a positive. So I would say all these discussions of trade war and other issues have got people really focusing on Canada and looking inward and supporting local business. And so, as a 100% Canadian firm that operates only in Ontario, I think that that's something to talk about and be proud of. Now, that isn't necessarily going to help ramp up transactions or help realtors right away, but my message here is I think one has to step back and refocus on things you can control. And so get a really good grip on what's happening in your market, right down to knowing what's happening in each individual neighborhood you're working in. And then through that, that's how you support both the buyers and sellers in giving them really the best possible advice. The great news is you'll have more time to spend with your clients. Nobody's having to rush because there's already 10 offers registered, and you'll be able to get them the best mortgage advice. So I think in a way there's ways to, and I don't mean it to sound like this, but there's ways to take advantage of, what's currently happening. And so, the other side, of course, the rentals market is where there is tremendous activity as rents are coming down. So as rates come down, we may be able to also transition some of those renters into buyers, and there may be better opportunities. So overall, I still want to be optimistic. I just think also refocus, by the way, on understanding that real estate is a long-term
Right.
thing. It is not what it became in the last 10 years, which is,
Right.
oh, buy today, flip 6 months, 8 months, 12 months from now and make 100,000. It was never, this was an aberration. And so I think a big part is also educating people as to that.
So many times when I get that question from my clients, how's the market?
Mhm.
Underlying the question is this idea of because I don't want to make a mistake now in
Yeah.
what I'm doing, either buying or selling. And
Mhm.
it's very hard to make a mistake like that if you are not speculating. If
Correct.
you are a real estate investor, like
Mhm.
a family, and you own a house and you plan to live there, it's kind of hard to get it wrong. Because
Right.
if you decide to sell in a slower market, then that
Mhm.
also means that you're taking advantage of better prices as when you go to buy.
Correct.
And of
Correct.
course, the reverse is also true. So
Yeah.
yes, always room for
Yeah.
optimism. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And sorry not to interrupt you, but this is where the true professionals will stand out. And that's the key here is really becoming the true professional who can answer the question sort of about the market and what's happening in finance and how that impacts their decisions, and rather than just, oh, this is a nice kitchen. I mean, that's I think this is where in this kind of market the real experts are going to stand out and do really well.
And I don't want to sort of tie you down here to an opinion or a prediction necessarily,
Mhm.
but I'm so
Mhm.
curious if you had to make a choice.
Yep.
You're not a betting man, I'm sure, but if you had to make a choice,
Mm.
what would you say is likely to have the biggest impact on the real estate market this year? And I know that
Mm.
there are so many things it could be, and everything is related to everything else. But do you have a gut feeling on that?
Yeah, not so much a gut feeling, although I have been watching and tracking with interest what's going on with the immigration numbers and the non-resident numbers. And what's interesting to me is StatsCan is so far behind and delayed that I don't think people are truly understanding what the drop in those incoming numbers is going to mean. Because, of course, in the last few years, they're the ones that fueled this rental market craze and actually, to a large extent, supported also the pre-con market, as a flood of new people coming in and renting. So I do think that with StatsCan underestimating outflows, overestimating total population growth, that's going to play a role. But the second part of this, though, the flip is new home construction is at an all-time low. And so we're going to be back to supply shortage in a couple of years.
Mm.
So this year, to me, is one of its balance. It's going to be we're not going to see the activity that we've seen in the last few years. But it's going to be one where I think things are going to sort of have to balance out across the various sectors. And once that happens towards the end of the year, I think now 2026 is the one where we'll start to see some acceleration in the market, because this is a year where we have to take up a lot of what's happened and absorb. And sorry, and it's interesting too. Another interesting stat that a good friend brought to my attention is tracking cell phone users and new cell phone signups. Is he was suggesting a better way to understand population growth. And so
Mm.
it's interesting. Bell Canada reported a 56% year-over-year decline in net new wireless customers, and TELUS reported a 44% decline. So all this to say, whether you look at car sales, whether you look at this kind of data, if people aren't coming in, or if people aren't spending that money, it translates into, lesser activity in our business. And so I'm telling agents to really get great at deciding who they want to work with and how qualified the people are that they're working with, and then spend the time with them and really do a great job, because they will refer you to other great people. So,
That's interesting, that angle of the new signups, because of
yep,
course everyone has a mobile phone. And
exactly. Yes.
but in terms of consumers, what advice do you have for, I think I know what you're going to say, by the way, but what advice do you have for consumers who are thinking to buy or maybe sell in the coming months
Mm-hmm.
or even this year? They say to you, it's really important to make the right decision. I get it. I understand it's a long-term bet. It's
Mm-hmm.
that's how real estate is. But John, what should
Yeah.
I do?
So I've got two great examples of this. One was my wife's nephew and his partner, who were first-time buyers, and then the second is my youngest son's best friend, who also is a first-time buyer. The first thing I did, sort of, I think, thinking back to my sales days, was go get qualified, sit down with a good mortgage broker or your banker, whomever you feel most comfortable with, but go and do it and really understand what it's going to cost you to get into the market. And then come back, and then let's have you meet with a couple of agents and get comfortable, and then move from there. And what I specifically said is, no matter what happens, don't rush into it. Don't get the FOMO, the issues of, oh, well, I better go for it today. And what's interesting is that the first couple, they actually rushed into a deal, fortunately had a home inspection clause, and found out that there was issues with the basement. So, they stepped back and said, yes, we're going to take our time and evaluate what's out there in the market. And as they did that, more came on the market. So That's why I say I think we have the chance to actually help people really find the right fit. It's never perfect, but take a bit more time and take care with what you're doing.
Get qualified, get comfortable with an agent because of
Yep.
course these people are going to be guiding you and you want to feel comfortable.
Yep.
I'm very big on this. I always
Mm.
say to people, if it's not me, it's not me. At the end of the day,
Yep.
you need to be comfortable and your style of communication should line up and
Exactly.
you should just feel comfortable because
Yeah.
somewhere along the way there may be some hard conversations to have.
Mhm.
Are you sure this is the right neighborhood for you? Do you really
Exactly.
need 4 bedrooms or can you live with 3? Some of these
Mhm.
conversations get tough when you're talking about
Yep.
someone's dream home. And then, of course, don't rush into anything. There's no need to rush into anything. This
Right.
isn't COVID pricing anymore. So if a consumer came up to you and said, I'd really like to know, if I could sell this year or next year, or if I could buy this year or next year, all
Mhm.
else being equal, should I be concerned about what I'm hearing on the news?
My answer to that typically is no. Having said that, what you need to be concerned about is what's happening in your immediate area. What do you know about what's going on right in your own neighborhood, on your street? Who's coming in? Who's leaving? Why? Like, really get comfortable with that. Obviously, some of the bigger issues are going to play a role. I think it's back to look, this too shall pass. And so everybody needs to, us as in realtors, need to be the calm voice of factual reason. That's how we're going to help our people the most, rather than getting all frantic and crazy.
What I'm hearing is get your hands on as much information as possible.
Absolutely.
And I think that's true in anything, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I always say to people, when you feel kind of like, I don't know what it is I should do, I'm not sure what decision to make, it's
Mhm.
just a signal that you don't have enough information. And that once you do
Exactly.
have enough information, then
Mhm.
you will know what to do. It won't be a mystery anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have said it any better. That's exactly right.
So, do you have any? I want to be mindful of your time here today. Do you have any final thoughts that burning thoughts that you want to share before we sign off for the next 3 years?
Not really, other than, maybe this goes back to my commercial real estate days, which is, at the end of the day, if you can strip away the emotions, of the situation or the deal or, what's going on. And as we just said, focus in on really putting a family where they're going to be thrilled to be for 10, 20 years. That's the key. And, there's nothing better, and you know this better than I would. But even with these last two folks that I was talking about, there's actually nothing better than having them close their deal and then send a message. Oh my God, you were so happy. This is fantastic. And, there's nothing that makes you feel better. And I don't have any wild words of wisdom other than keep doing what you're doing because you do it so well. So
Wow, thank you so much, John. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
my
I wish
pleasure.
us both a whole world of luck as we go into
Yes.
2025.